Hi, I'm Crystal. Today I'm going to be making some thank you cards for the holidays. I don't want them to be explicitly Christmas, but I do want something kind of holiday-ish, and I've selected this stamp set. It's from Simon Says Stamp, and based on the product number, I think it was from September of 2020, and I had to have it, and it's never been opened. So this is why I'm on shopping hiatus, or trying really hard not to go shopping anyway. I've linked to some similar sets below because this kind of wintry forest animal theme is very, very common across a bunch of manufacturers. But really, just get in your stamp sets and find one holiday themed or winter themed. I'm sure that you've got plenty. So I'm going to start out with a colored pencil approach, stamp then color. That's a new stamp, so I'm just stamping off to make sure that I don't need to wipe the stamp with a microfiber cloth, but it was fine. So I'm going to stamp down my bear, and you want to make sure that the ink and the paper have time to get acquainted. You can't just flash it down there and move on. And then I'm going to get out my colored pencils and just go to town. This was probably the most time-consuming of the cards, actually, because coloring this little bear with colored pencils took me about 15 minutes. It was a lot of fun, you know, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this was probably the most time-consuming. So I know that there are a bunch of ways that people can blend out colored pencils. I've seen people do it with Gamsol or with rubbing alcohol, but I don't think that's really necessary. I thought the colored pencil bear was fine on its own. Then I'm going to move on to watercolor, and here I guess this would be the color then stamp approach, only because if you want a little bit of a background, you need to do that obviously in the background, and I don't want to paint around the bear. So I'm making a little colored area for him to sit in first, and just putting down a little bit of a watercolor ground using the world's cheapest watercolors. I think mine came from Michael's and have an Artist Loft branding on them, but a bunch of people sell these same watercolors for not very much money. Now I'm putting my bear down on my completely dry watercolor background, and then I'm going to color him a little bit more, also using watercolor. This was a little bit faster. It's pretty loose watercoloring, and I like watercoloring. So this one took about 6 minutes. And I just, since the bear is brown, my background is brown, and since I started out with the first method using a brown and green color scheme, I just kind of continued that on this version. So once I've got my little bear colored, I thought I would like to have the little die cut thanks match in some way. So I took a little bit of the pink watercolor I'd used for his cheeks and just painted a scrap of that mixed media paper. Thought that one turned out really cute. Now I'm going to take this one that I stamped off just to check the stamp and fussy cut him. And the next 3 cards all take fussy cutting, and each time I fussy cut something that took about 2 minutes. That's not a very complex shape, so it was not too time consuming. Now for this one I'm just going to build a background, and I'm going to do my background with some paint swiping. I love paint swiping. It's so quick, it's so easy, and I love how it looks. So I'm using my grocery store loyalty card there to just swipe out my acrylic paint. I'm using 2 colors, so there's a little bit of mixture on the background. And there he is, so cute. Now we're going to do a little bit of scene building, and that takes some masking. And for the masking, I'm using a full adhesive Post-it note. Now that's a little bit of a misnomer because that little cross-hatched row at the top is non-adhesive, and then the whole rest of the Post-it is adhesive. But they're not too expensive. You get a bunch of Post-its on a pad, and usually they're plenty large enough for me. So I've got down my little Post-it, and I'm going to pick out a couple of other stamps to use on my scene. And I had to fiddle around with this a little bit. I wasn't too certain how I wanted it, but I decided I really did like the bear in the middle of the card, and it looked off to me when he was not in the center of the card. I don't know if my eye was being deceived because he was pink, but I went with him in the middle. Once I've got him in place, I'm just going to go ahead and stamp my little scene. These are the bits that are going to be behind him. And I'm cleaning off my stamp there with my little bit of car chamois. I live in a humid climate, and everything here ultimately is going to mildew. So the craft chamois are much nicer, but I have to throw these away every month or so and cut off another piece of car chamois because they just don't survive. So now I'm putting down my little bear in the middle. I didn't get him quite perfectly where I had masked. He's off by just a scoosh. So I think a stamp platform would have made that work a little better. And I just stuck my Post-it down to the stamp packaging so I can use it again sometime if I ever come back to the stamp set. Although obviously my track record is not great. Now here I'm putting some wrapping paper behind the die cut word to put some color to it. And I am using some double-sided tape to do that because the wrapping paper is kind of plastic. So PVA glue is an emulsion in water and it needs to evaporate. It is not going to evaporate when you put it next to plastic. So that's why it doesn't work well on plastic. So a little bit of double-sided tape on the plastic, glue every place else. And there's my little masked scene. And I think my bear looks awfully cute. So next, I'm going to move on and build a shaker card. So I just need a bear to put in the middle of my shaker card. So I'm going to stamp him out and fussy cut him. And then go ahead and die cut my word. And I've trimmed down my panel by just 1/8 of an inch in each direction because the packaging I'm going to use on the shaker is going to take up just a little bit of room and I want it to fit on the card base. So once I've got my bear and my word cut out, I think there's going to be plenty of contrast with that pattern paper. I'm going to put a little glue on the back of each of them. Now, since this is going to be a shaker, I really need these items to be glued completely down. So I'm going to spread the glue out with my grocery store loyalty card there to make sure they are completely adhered edge to edge. It's not normally important to do that with paper pieces, but I don't want any of the shaker bits to get caught up under the edge of these and pop them off the paper. So the glue really needs to be spread out. Now I could have run it through a Xyron. I could have used a little multi-matte medium, something like that, but just you have to make sure it's really stuck down. Now I'm going to build a shaker card on some packaging. And I just put my completed paper face down, and I'm using some double-sided tape, again because the packaging is plastic and the PVA glue is not going to work. And also, of course, you want something high grab for this. Excuse me. So I think that hot glue would be fine too, but PVA glue is not going to get it. So once I've got the adhesive on all 3 sides, I am going to trim down my packaging just a little bit. It's a little bit bigger than I need. And just want to make sure that I don't have too much excess on the back of the card front. Then I'm going to peel up the double-sided tape, fold up the plastic, and I'm going to remove some bulk at the corners to make sure that I don't have too much on the back of this card front. Once I've got the 3 sides adhered, fully adhered so that nothing's going to escape, then I'll put the shaker bits in from the top. So you want to be very careful here, because if you are not careful, your recipient is going to end up with shaker bits all over their floor, and they're not going to be happy. I don't know if you've ever gotten a card that had glitter on the inside or confetti on the inside. So irritating. So I'm not trying to send a confetti card. I'm trying to send a fun shaker card. So here are my shaker bits. Some nice high contrast gold bits. Oh yeah, I think that turned out great. Okay, get all the little bits up. Now we're going to seal the top, since we've made sure that the bits are in and they're not too few, they're not too many, they've got room to move around. Trimming down the excess, trimming down the corners, just removing that bulk to make sure that your card is going to lay flat. Putting on that last little piece of double-sided tape. And then we will be good to go. That's probably the fastest shaker I've ever built, but it did still take about 10 minutes to build that beginning to end. And here we go. We've got paint swipe we have a scene, we have some watercolor, we have some color pencil, and we have a shaker. So I hope that that was enjoyable for you as it was for me, and I thank you for joining me today.